Hi everyone, welcome back to IELTS Time. Today we're exploring a Part 3 topic, children's behaviour and discipline. We'll watch a sample dialogue with Jessica asking questions and Joseph giving natural, detailed answers. After that, we'll break down his responses, highlighting key points and useful vocabulary you can use in your own answers. Let's jump in.
Why do you think some children misbehave in public?
Honestly, I think a lot of it comes down to a few things. Sometimes it's just about a lack of understanding. Kids are still learning how the world works and what's expected of them. They might not realize that running around a quiet library or shouting in a restaurant isn't okay. Other times, it's just boredom or being overstimulated. A long shopping trip can be super draining for a little kid, and they might act out because they're tired or just need a change of pace. And I also think sometimes it's a way of seeking attention, whether it's positive or negative. They've figured that a tantrum gets a reaction, and for a kid, any attention is better than no attention.
Do children usually behave differently at home compared to in public?
Yeah, I think there's a huge difference. At home, kids are in their comfort zone. They know the rules, they're familiar with the environment, and they feel safe to express themselves, which can sometimes mean being a little more wild or messy, but in public, they're in a new setting with different social rules. The pressure to be good can sometimes be overwhelming, and they might act out because of that. Also, at home, they know they can retreat to their room or have a snack whenever they want, but in public, their routine is disrupted, and that can be unsettling for them. So I'd say they generally have a different set of behaviors for each environment.
How should parents respond when their children misbehave outside the home?
I think the best approach for parents is to stay calm and be consistent. When a child misbehaves in public, the worst thing a parent can do is lose their cool and shout, as that just escalates the situation and makes everyone uncomfortable. A better way is to gently but firmly redirect their behavior. For example, if a child is throwing a tantrum, a parent could calmly take them to a quiet corner and talk to them about why their behavior isn't appropriate, rather than just yelling at them in the middle of a store. It's about setting clear boundaries and consequences without causing a huge scene.
What role do teachers and schools play in teaching children how to behave properly?
Teachers and schools play a massive role. They're like a second set of parents when it comes to social development. Schools provide a structured environment with clear rules that kids have to follow, like waiting in line, sharing toys, and being respectful to their peers and teachers. This teaches them important social skills they need for life. Teachers also act as role models and can use methods like positive reinforcement or group activities to teach cooperation and proper behavior. They're basically training kids for the real world where you have to follow rules and respect others.
What are some effective ways to teach children discipline without being too strict?
I think the key is to use positive reinforcement and a lot of communication. Instead of just punishing bad behavior, parents should praise and reward good behavior. For example, if a kid helps clean up their toys without being asked, they could get a small treat or extra playtime. It's also important to explain the why behind the rules. Instead of just saying, "Don't run in the house," a parent could say, "We don't run in the house because you might fall and get hurt." This helps kids understand the reason behind the rule, which makes them more likely to follow it. It's about guidance, not just control.
How has parenting changed compared to the past in terms of discipline?
Oh, it's changed so much. In the past, it seemed like a lot of parenting was very authoritarian. The common phrase was something like, children should be seen and not heard. Discipline was often based on strict rules and sometimes even corporal punishment. Now, the approach is much more focused on communication and understanding. Parents are encouraged to talk to their kids about their feelings and to use methods like timeouts instead of physical punishment. It's moved from a rule-based, fear-driven model to a more relationship-based, understanding-driven model.
Do you think the way children behave in public reflects their upbringing?
I definitely think there's a strong connection. A child's behavior is often a direct reflection of the environment they grow up in. If they're taught respect, kindness, and clear boundaries at home, they're much more likely to show those same qualities in public. On the other hand, if a child grows up in a chaotic environment without clear rules, their behavior might become more unpredictable and harder to manage. Of course, upbringing isn't the only factor. Things like personality and temperament also play a big role, but I'd still say that a parent's approach to raising their child is one of the most powerful influences, since parents are the first and most important role models in a child's life.
How does culture affect the way children are disciplined in different countries?
Culture plays a massive role in how children are disciplined. For example, in some Western cultures, there's a strong emphasis on individualism and giving children a lot of freedom to express themselves from a young age. This often means more verbal communication and less physical discipline. In contrast, some cultures, particularly those that are more collective, might emphasize respect for elders and authority more, and discipline could be stricter or more formal. The values a culture holds, like the importance of community, family hierarchy, or individual expression, are all reflected in how parents teach their children right from wrong.
That was a fantastic sample dialogue. Now let's break down Joseph's answers and look at the key points and vocabulary you can use in your own answers. For the first question about why children misbehave in public, Joseph identifies several reasons. He says children sometimes don't fully understand social rules because they're still learning how the world works. He also points out that boredom or being overstimulated can lead to misbehavior. Finally, he mentions that kids often misbehave to get attention. Even negative attention feels rewarding. Notice how Joseph uses precise vocabulary, like overstimulated and attention-seeking. These are excellent phrases you can borrow for your own answers. He also gives concrete examples, like a long shopping trip or a library, which make his ideas relatable and easy to follow. When talking about differences between home and public behaviour, Joseph explains that children feel comfortable and safe at home, so they can express themselves more freely. In public, though, there are unfamiliar rules and disrupted routines which can make children anxious or stressed. Here, useful phrases include comfort zone, disrupted routines, and pressure of social rules. These not only make the answer clear, but also give it more psychological depth. On the question of how parents should respond to misbehavior outside the home, Joseph emphasizes staying calm and consistent. He suggests gently redirecting the child and explaining why the behavior is inappropriate. Importantly, he highlights setting boundaries without creating a scene. Key expressions here are gently but firmly, clear boundaries, and without causing a scene. Using descriptive vocabulary like this shows both accuracy and fluency. When discussing the role of schools, Joseph highlights that they provide structure and teach social skills. He explains that teachers act as role models and reinforce positive behaviour through routines and group activities. Vocabulary like structured environment, role models, and social skills is very effective for Part 3. Connecting school experiences to wider social expectations, as Joseph does, also makes the answer sound insightful. When talking about how to teach discipline without being too strict, Joseph focuses on positive reinforcement. He suggests praising and rewarding good behaviour and explaining the reasons behind rules so children understand them better. Notice how he contrasts punishment with encouragement. Phrases like positive reinforcement praise and reward, and explaining the why make the response thoughtful and practical. On the question of how parenting has changed, Joseph contrasts the strict, rule-based approaches of the past with today's more communication-focused style. He points out that physical punishment is less common now, with parents often using methods like timeouts instead. The key vocabulary here includes authoritarian, communication-focused, and timeouts. Comparing past and present shows strong analytical ability, which examiners appreciate. When talking about whether children's behavior reflects their upbringing, Joseph makes it clear that there is a strong connection. He explains that if children are taught respect, kindness, and boundaries at home, they are more likely to show those qualities in public. On the other hand, growing up without clear rules can lead to unpredictable or difficult behavior. He also emphasizes that parents are the child's first and most important role models. This expression is powerful and can strengthen your own answers. Finally, when discussing cultural influences, Joseph explains that different cultures raise children in different ways. Western cultures often encourage individualism and self-expression, while collectivist cultures tend to emphasize obedience and respect for authority. These terms, individualism, collectivist, authority, are strong academic words that fit naturally into this topic. Providing cultural contrasts makes your answer broader and more convincing. Overall, Joseph's answers combine clear structure, precise vocabulary, and thoughtful examples. This is exactly the kind of approach you should aim for in IELTS Speaking Part 3. That's it for this video. If you found it helpful, smash that like button and subscribe for more IELTS lessons. Good luck with your practice, and I'll see you in the next one.